Anyway, let's pretend this part's painted. You put the nose on. You can come back here and you can bend these tabs over with pliers. And then I even usually put a little bit of goop glue on it so there's no way it's going to, you know, fish around and move or anything like that. There's going to be this gel material. One side is real shiny and one side's got a matte. That's because it has a built-in diffuser. So you'd put your goop glue around the back side and of course trim the gel up so it's not sticking out too far and glue it down with the matte side facing back. Okay, got that. And then when it comes to the chest artwork, I'll already have the translucent decal applied to a piece of plastic. The best way to glue this on is to put goop along this edge here and here, and then you can hang on to the thing and kind of watch from the front when you do it, and you can line it up, and if you shine light through it, it makes it even easier to see when you get it lined up straight or not. Once it's straight, it's going to pretty much stay there, so you can turn the thing upside down. Then you can come back with some goop glue and use a little screwdriver or something. You know what I mean? See if I can get this where you can see it. And just apply another little ridge of goop along there and along there. Then set the whole thing aside to dry so that the gel for the eyes can dry, the nose, if you put goop on it, can dry, and that can dry. That'll have your front detailed. The leads that we'll probably be using for the eyes, they're normally clear this day when you get ultra bright red. But all I have laying right now are some older leads that look red even when they're off. So don't let the color of the lead fool you. That's not going to make any difference other than the ones that I'll be ordering for the kit will be brighter. All leads have a little flat side on them and a round side. The flat side is the negative lead and the non-flat side is the positive lead. As long as you remember that, everything's going to be just fine. Let me get a few more parts together here, dig out some resistors, and we'll mock up some leads. Let's have a little fun with solder. Anyway, cut a couple of wire-wise. There's going to be 3 foot of wire that'll be used for running up on the robot and running out to the remote. And then there's another foot of wire that can be used for wiring things inside the robot. So out of that other foot of wire, I cut a piece of twin lead that was 4.5 inches long and a piece of twin lead that's 3 inches long. And I've pulled the insulation off the ends of all the wires. What we need to do is to connect 2 of them together. It doesn't matter which 2. Like so. Just keep green to green and white to white. And if they keep coming apart on me, which they will, I'm going to solder that green to green first. Then I'll be able to get the white to white to stay. Is that in within where the camera can see? Okay, come on. There we go. And then just go ahead and tin all the remaining ends of the wires so they're ready to solder to something. Just like that. Okay. Now, working with the leads, take the positive one. Remember, there's a flat side and a non-flat side, and the positive is the non-flat side. It's also usually the longer of the 2 legs, but not always, so don't use that as your rule. Anyway, I'm going to cut it fairly short. You can see there's a crimp mark on all leads. I'm going to cut just past that on both leads, the positive one short. Then there will be a couple of resistors. Their value is not critical. It could be anything from 100 ohms to 220 ohms. It just doesn't really matter. In this case, I'm using some 220 ohm resistors. And I'm going to solder those right to that short area where we just cut to the positive leg. You want to be fairly quick when you solder on a lead because too much heat will damage the lead. So you just want to touch it, get it soldered, get away from it. You'll be just fine. When in doubt, blow on it. Okay, now we're going to connect the 2 negative leads of the leads. That's where the flat side was. is take and bend those right near those same crimp marks, and bend them opposites. Maybe we're recording. I just did a whole segment and found that the camera didn't record any of it. So let's try to do catch up here, I guess. Basically, on the two leads, hopefully some of that was recorded. The negative lead, the flat side of the leads, I soldered together, basically spacing the leads about the same spacing as they're going to be when they're in the robot. And then the two positive leads that had the resistors on them, soldered the two ends of the resistors together. And I took that wire assembly, where we had the 4.5 inch long one and the shorter 3 inch or whatever it was, because it's not critical, where we'd soldered those two middles together. Well, I take the long end of that and put the wire assembly, take the green wire to the negative of the leads, take the white wire to the two resistors, which is the positive of the leads, and solder those on. Have the other ends all tinned up, ready to go. And then basically we're going to take this assembly and solder it into the robot. This middle area on these wires where they met together, the green one will go on the back connector, the one that basically is touching the metal, and the white one will go on the one that moves, the actual switch, if you will. So we have the common and the switch. I've already pre-tinned them, hit them with the soldering gun and solder, so there's a little, so they're tinned up, so they should solder really quick and easily. I'll put the green one on first, otherwise it'll be in the way. Like that. And the white one, like that. Okay, now we have the remaining ends of the wires that we had. Take the green one and solder it to this tab of the motor. This would be the robot's right side, so the right tab of the motor, which when the robot is walking forwards, this lead on this motor needs to be negative, for example. And the white wire, let's solder that to the brass on this light bulb, on the grill light. Like that. Get the white to the brass and the green to that little motor connection. Kind of push these things down out of the way for now. Take a little short piece of white wire, and we're going to go from the end of the bulb over to the other motor terminal. You want to be as quick as you can when soldering to the motor terminal so you don't melt the plastic that brush terminal goes into. Just like so. Now that's on there. Now if we've soldered all of that correctly, and if I hook voltage back to the motor, negative to this right lead over here, as if it was walking frontwards, and positive to this other lead, you get a flash every time that switch gets hit. And the eye light should come on every time the grill light goes out. You could adjust your flashing. For example, if it was just on all the time, you might need to bend the end of this or add some more spring to it so it lifts up. Or if it wasn't on enough, you might want to bend the end a little sharper. Anyway, just by bending this tab a little bit, you can kind of adjust that flash rate. But for the most part, you won't have to do anything. From the way it was bent when we made it on the table, it should work just fine. As far as mounting the LEDs up in this eye part, I'm almost thinking at this point that it might have been easier if we had made this LED and wire assembly back before we put this part in the robot. Because maybe mounting these LEDs to that part, you know, and presenting that to the body as one complete unit would be easier than trying to do it now. Because at this point you kind of need to hold the LEDs up in the air in order to work the grommets down over them. It's not real hard, like that. And then you'll need a little flat screwdriver of some sort to tuck the lip of the grommet into that hole in the resin, just like that. And then to make sure they never go anywhere, you could take some goop glue and reach up underneath them in there and put a little glue on them and glue them down.